the end of World War II. There's one anniversary they probably would prefer go unnoticed. It was 50 years ago this week that Private Eddie Slovik was shot to death by a firing squad. He was one of thousands of American soldiers who deserted during World War II. He was the only one who was executed. He probably would have been forgotten long ago, if not for the efforts of two military veterans who have spent the last 20 years trying to clear his name. The execution of Private Eddie Slovik was kept secret by the Army for 9 years. Even his wife Antoinette would not learn how he died until 1954.
The Army doesn't want to admit they made a mistake, and they certainly did.
Retired Major Edward Woods of Lansdale, Pennsylvania, was a young infantry officer with the 28th Division when he was assigned to defend Slovik during his court-martial. Now, 50 years later, he is still working to clear Slovik's name with help from his friend and fellow veteran, Rocky DeFinis.
If something was wrong 50 years ago, it's just as wrong today, and it should be corrected.
The wrong, they say, was sending Slovik into combat in the first place. Even the commander of Slovik's training company would later testify that Slovik had a deadly fear of his own rifle. He recommended that Slovik be assigned to a non-combat unit. But Slovik was shipped overseas and later confessed to deserting his unit after they came under attack in France. In a 1 hour and 40-minute trial, he was sentenced to the firing squad. General Eisenhower signed off on the execution, and Slovik was shot on January 31st, 1945. He was buried in a French cemetery reserved for GIs convicted of rape and murder. A 1954 book on the case was later turned into a TV movie, and that prompted Woods and DeFinis to get involved. They promised Antoinette Slovik that they would try to clear her husband's name and bring his body back to the United States.
And then it became a contest between the will of the government and the will of these two little guys from Lansdale.
So far, neither has given in. DeFinis even mortgaged his home to help cover the estimated $100,000 they've spent on lawyers, research, and letter-writing campaigns. They've sought presidential pardons from Ford, Carter, Reagan, and Bush. President Clinton may be their last chance.
President Clinton says no. I believe that we're going to take that as a final no. Because I have a feeling he's going to say yes.
The White House says they're sending the pardon request to the Justice Department for review. Until they get the word, their work continues, as does their friendship, which has the warmth of shared history and the comic timing of Abbott and Costello.
You were thin. How much did you weigh when you were in the
I've always been thin, Rocky. Have you always been fat?
No, I was 158 in the Army.
But also the shared frustrations.
I've had mixed emotions over the years, like, why am I doing this? Sometimes the kid hates her.
Eddie Slovik's body was finally returned to the United States in 1988 and buried beside his wife's in a Detroit cemetery. The inscription on his headstone reads, "Honor and justice prevailed." But for Major Edward Woods and Rocky DeFinis, there are still some promises left to keep. We'll be back in a moment.
All these